In the year 793 AD, a new threat materialized out of the icy northern seas. Without warning, fleets of Norsemen struck the coastlines of an entirely unprepared Europe. The violence began here, at the monastery of Lindisfarne in England. Monks were slaughtered, and holy treasures were stripped from the altars. It was a sudden, brutal introduction to a century of terror. Historians know exactly what happened on that day, and in the decades that followed. But the deeper mystery remains. Why did thousands of Scandinavian men suddenly risk everything on the open ocean at this exact moment? Traditional accounts point to a cultural thirst for gold, religious conquest, or the favor of their gods. They depict a warrior culture simply fulfilling its violent nature. But another explanation suggests a different catalyst. Some researchers point to a severe hidden demographic crisis, an extreme shortage of women that effectively broke Norse society. Early Norse culture operated on a strictly hierarchical system. Resources, power, and land flowed upward into the hands of a few powerful chieftains. This imbalance was worsened by polygyny. Elite men took multiple wives, effectively hoarding society's most vital resource. This left men at the bottom of the pyramid in a mathematical vacuum. With elites monopolizing marriages, poorer young men had no realistic chance of securing a wife. Environmental pressures made this social imbalance even more deadly. Brutal Scandinavian winters and frequent food shortages made simple survival a constant struggle. Under these harsh conditions, families may have frequently practiced female infanticide. By favoring the survival of boys over girls, they further distorted the ratio of men to women across the population. The result was a societal pressure cooker, a massive underclass of young men who were effectively locked out of inheritance, family, and a future. Maintaining such a massive demographic imbalance within a weaponized warrior culture is inherently dangerous. Thousands of young men had the means to fight, but nothing at home worth fighting for. For these men, the Viking raid was a survival strategy. Sailing to Europe was a calculated economic gamble for those who already faced total marginalization in their own villages. Success brought immediate rewards: silver, gold, and portable wealth. These items were not just trophies, they were the currency needed to change their lives. This stolen wealth, along with the capture of slaves, allowed these men to artificially manufacture the status required to buy a bride back in Scandinavia. Raiding was the only path to the social standing they couldn't inherit. The demographic data aligns with the specific nature of the era's earliest recorded attacks. These weren't the works of national armies, but small, aggressive warbands composed almost entirely of young men. This explosive violence acted as a necessary release valve. It was a desperate act of social survival by men attempting to force their way back into a society that had excluded them. Of course, the shortage of women is one piece of a larger puzzle. Mastery of the longship, with its shallow draft and ocean-crossing capabilities, gave the Norsemen a technological edge their neighbors couldn't match. They also benefited from shifting trade routes and a politically fragmented Europe that was still reeling from the vacuum left by the Roman Empire. These ships and the weak borders created the opportunity, but it was the collapsing social balance at home that provided the kinetic energy required to actually push these fleets into the water. This perspective changes the archetype of the Viking. Behind the pop culture image of the fearless conqueror lies a more human reality: a lonely, marginalized young man with no other way to secure a future. The Viking expansion illustrates a persistent historical truth. The most terrifying and explosive eras aren't always ignited by the powerful seeking destiny. Often, they are the work of the marginalized, desperately fighting for a place in the world.